Oh, is it recording? I think it's recording now. All right. Yep. So hello.
Alan.
This is going to be a very interesting interview. I am chatting with, say the name I want people to know.
You can call me Carl. That's enough.
Oh, okay. Carl. I hope I pronounced that right. Carl. So you you're a YouTube commenter as far as I know, right?
Well, I'm a
I
little bit of a shit poster, but still,
okay. So YouTube commenter slash shit poster. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about you, really. I know a little bit about maybe where you're coming from, but just a tiny amount. And I'd like you to tell me uh, whatever you want people to know about you and what you're about, and we can discuss some of your ideas. I do want to say as a disclaimer, real quick, I am going to get in a lot of shit for doing this interview. I don't care because I believe in free speech. And I believe that it doesn't matter what someone else's ideas are, it doesn't matter how horrible you think they are. The the important thing is you have something called the marketplace of ideas, and good ideas can shut down bad ideas. I'd rather have that discussion and then have people know what a bad idea is, and then they can actually contend with that bad idea than what they think someone else believes, right? I think that's going to be a lot more honest and it's easier to tackle issues. So go ahead and tell me about yourself and what your beliefs are and whatnot.
Who I am is really of no interest, and I'm not interested in being a name or seek fame or anything like that. We have enough of these people. I have no ego to satisfy in that sense. What I want, why I do this, is simply that I wish to, so to speak, show you who we actually are. There is a lot of talk about us as identitarian white, far right, call it what the hell you want to know. We have thousands of names, and you can pick one. It doesn't matter to me. I want to clear out how I see who we are, who I myself are, what I stand for. There is a lot of talk about us, but never ever talk to us. You can see it on TV shows, you can see it on in newspapers and all of that. They always talk about us, but they don't dare to ever to ask what we think. The latest was Richard Spencer's on CNN. It was a shit show. He was only there to validate that Trump is a racist. That's the only reason they have him there. They think of us as puppets, something to be used for their own agenda. And there has to be someone who speaks out and
So
says
well, let me ask
that
you:
is enough.
is there any truth to some of this? Like, do you think that some of the allegations are true, some of the assumptions are true, and what concepts or what ideas that we, in general, those who are not your your demographic, what do we have wrong about where you
It
stand?
depends on what it is, but let's be honest about it. We all have a bias. I mean, I will side with my people all day, and my people in this case are white. CNN
So
will side with their people. You might side with yours, and so forth. Let's be honest about it. We all have a bias. We all want something. To say to
let me
CNN what is truth and what is not. I mean, for
let
heaven's
me ask
sake.
you, what's so important about race? Like, why is that? Why stand with others on the basis of race and not belief, right? So if you stand side by side with someone, say, well, the white people, I stand with the white people, and it's like ethno-nationalists. Why is that important? Why not stand with people as part of a country and say, we all share the same ideology. We all believe that all men are created equal, right? So in America, I know we're being polarized, but a lot of us still believe fundamentally that all men are created equal. It doesn't matter what race, what creed, whatever. We all have the same fundamental rights, and that those rights should never be violated. And that even means like freedom of speech. If I disagree with what you have to say, you still have a right to say it. I might despise you, but I still would protect your right to say that.
That is not a conflict here. One would think that just because you side with one group means that you are against all others. That is not true. They say we hating everybody else because you love your own. There is no logic to that. That is a lie.
So let me
Simply,
ask you,
you know,
what about a bias towards you take care of your own and then you forsake the others? So it's like, for example, you're a politician, right? Let's say you're a politician and you've gone out of your way to help out white folk and then neglect, like you choose not to fund like a black neighborhood. You only fund the better, like wealthier white neighborhoods, right? Like you don't think that's like a possibility? Or
you are talking about a conflict here that one side still would go against others. If you are to the concept, have you ever heard of the 14 words?
yeah, I have.
Yes.
Uh,
And the
uh,
14 words secures your people's existence and a future for white children. That's what it is.
but
The 14
why
words.
identify on the basis of race? Why is race important to you?
Race is what you are. It's when it comes language, culture, the very essence of what you are.
Well,
Race,
so hold on.
race
Race is
is
biology, right? Race is biology, but then the rest is sociological. Those are
only
two
what you
different
will.
things. So
If you go,
you can be black and still have all those other things.
that you can be, but if you take me for instance, where I come from, with me comes the history of my people, the very essence of what I am, the history, the language, how I look, how I am in the world. The race is what you are, basically. It is the very essence of that you are.
But
Some
it
people
doesn't.
refuse
Race
to
should
ignore.
never. Race is not supposed to define you. Like you're an individual. We are all individuals. We are free thinkers, right? And so that your race is all incidental. And maybe like you're born into a culture, you're born into a race and a community, but that isn't all that you are. You can go beyond that, and you can incorporate other races, other cultures, the parts especially that are compatible and like what's the word, synergistic, right? So that's the thing about melting pot countries is like the U.S. is we take in people from other lands, and those that have compatible views that share the same ideology, for example, freedom, we take that and we use that to strengthen us. And so this is where the phrase diversity is our strength. Now, I think diversity absolutely can be our strength. However, the way it's used with intersectionalists, that's where I disagree. And I would also say that a focus on homogeny, right, being of the same, that can lead to a lot of problems, especially if, like, let's say you have an enclave of all white people that decide they don't want to breed with outsiders. Then you can have, like, on a biological level, you can have genetic or abnormalities, right? So I remember reading how Sweden and some other Nordic countries before all this mass immigration were at risk of congenital diseases from essentially centuries of inbreeding. Now, fortunately, they have had this immigration, and that's helped to diversify the gene pool. But without that diversity, y'all would have been screwed in about 100 years.
Well, I have heard of this diversity is your strength, and it is fundamentally a lie.
Why?
There
Why is it?
is.
So it's like this. Like this is actually one of the things about like I come from the South, right? And the thing about the South is we believe in states' rights, and so what works in one state doesn't necessarily work in another. So this centralization, a strong central government, creating blanket policies, it doesn't take into account the niche needs of each individual state. And even on a state level, it should really be try to have stronger local governments that are going to know what their own individual communities need. So the smaller the government, the better, right? So you want to have multiple projects out there with their own little ecosystems instead of working to homogenize blanket one size policy. It doesn't work. You really do need that diversity so that, let's say, something happens, there's a catastrophe, economic or even famine, right? When you're talking about, I know I'm kind of going off on a rant, but even when it comes to like agriculture, a monoculture of crops, you get one disease, it wipes out the whole crop, right? You want to have that diversity so that you have a disease, it doesn't wipe out your whole crop, right?
Well,
Same thing with
that's
ideas. Same thing with
applying
ideas.
for this,
A,
but
a, a people can become toxic if they have a monoculture. They need to have that diversity so that when there is adversity, they can rise up to the challenge. They have.
okay, let's have a question for you. Do you think that people that moves to the US wants to be like you?
It depends.
Do you
It
think
depends.
that immigrants,
If they,
do you think that an immigrant that comes here from whoever country, from the Middle East or whatever comes, is in every one of them is a little bit of you in them? They want to be like you. They want to embrace your views, and in many terms sacrifice their own so they can be like you. Do you think that they will do so? And how many of them?
So the ones that are willing to go through our process, our vetting process, I think, yeah, a lot of them do. Absolutely. A lot of them see the opportunities that we have here. They share the same libertine ideology, and they want that, and they are extra grateful for our system because it came from systems that forbade that, right? So, for example, I have some coworkers that are from a Latin American background, and when I had talked to them about the immigration debate, I thought immediately they'd be against Donald Trump. Instead, they were for him, and they were for stronger borders and for reforming immigration and vetting people that shared the American ideology, which is enshrined in our Constitution. So I thought that was fascinating, but it ultimately comes down to they really did believe in the American way, the American values.
That's a separate thing. Your Latin American co-workers, where do they live? Is it a diverse area, or do they live amongst other Latinos?
Well, I mean, we live in a city, so I mean, you're still going to have some diversity. But I see what you're saying. That, like, people do tend to sort of self-segregate. Part of this is because maybe they, well, besides extended families, right? You do have shared cultures, like, but at the same time, there's this overlapping culture, which is Americanism, that they share, and that's why they want to be here. But yeah, of course, they're going to relate to those that are going to share more Latin culture. But there's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's proven my point.
Well,
People
no, Latin culture isn't. Latin American culture is not inherently anti-American.
No, it doesn't. As I told you, just because you are for something does not inherently that you are against others. That means that if you like your family, doesn't mean that you hate every other family on the block. Call it whatever you wanted, but simply they live amongst themselves. They speak their language, they eat their food, and they can very well live the American life. They are clicking up their own.
But the thing is, you shouldn't be trying to push them away. Right? You can say, yeah, I want to make sure that I take care of my own, but it shouldn't be at the exclusion of others. And what I tend to see from people that are like white identitarians is they would not only want to associate with their own, but they want to exclude those that aren't like them. I think that's a problem. I think that is a real problem. So
then the next question was, how many other people do you think lives that isn't of Latin descent lives in the area where your co-workers live?
I can't guess.
How many whites? How many blacks? How many Asians?
So my coworkers and I all live in the same city, which is a very diverse city. It actually is more of a college town. So I don't know. It's a very diverse city, and
well, my point is that we are clicking up, and as we all click up, the same. Go in a bus, go in everywhere. You go with people that is of your own because that's who you are. That's your group. The same on the buses. The same everywhere. There is nothing wrong with it. It is a denial.
Well, no one's saying that. No one's saying that you can't click up. The problem is.
I mean that it's a natural.
When people talk about on like ethno-nationalism on a national level, that's when you have a problem. America should not be an ethno-nationalist state. That shouldn't be. because
Let's you.
there's no way to do that without excluding all the other minorities in this country, and
Okay.
that's not compatible with our beliefs.
Do you think this applies to everybody else? Your Latin area where your friends live, and I would assume that most Latin people there. Should you think that they should be diverse? That means that they be forced to have other people from other races
No one
moving
should be
that they want to
forced to
not.
do anything. That's the thing. So you should
Then the
be
area isn't diverse.
you should be free to diversify. You should not be forced to diversify. You should not be forced to be inclusive. That's where I have a problem. So let people sort themselves. That's a fair society. So it's like this. It's a typical argument about you want to have a equal opportunity. You don't want to have like forced equality of outcome, right? Ideally, you want women in certain fields. You want men in certain fields that they otherwise wouldn't be. And it gives new ideas, new perspectives, right? But you can't force them in those areas. You can't deliberately exclude men from one area and exclude women from another area. You can't do that. You can't. And so that's where we have a problem. And that's actually helping to create a rise in identitarianism. One thing that I see, and I think that helps bolster your side, is because of the identitarianism of people of color, or it doesn't have to just be people of color, it's also sexual status, gender identity status. It's actually driving more people to your side, and I think that's actually dangerous.
You had a question. You wondering why people get to be who I am.
Yeah.
Can you get? Do you know why? Why people would be like me? What is the driving factor?
Honestly, I can say that I have seen some people, as a reaction to the mass migration, they felt alienated by their own government. I've seen that. They felt like there is a preference of minorities coming into their country over their own people. So I can see where people would radicalize on that basis. And they look at it as an existential threat. Go ahead.
Would you want to know the truth?
Go ahead.
Most of the leaders, I mean, Jerry Taylor's, Cantwell, and I don't know Richard Spencer, but I guess the same. It's reality. Most people would think that it is internet. None of it. It is the reality of where you live. The area lived in has changed now. It isn't as white as it used before. It's more diverse, could be more criminality. You do not belong anymore. It is not your country anymore. In the city where we have enclaves, ethnic enclaves. They are living in my country, but they are not me. They are not part of my country. They are just here by the borders.
So let me ask you a question. Are these people who are just not assimilating? They're like creating little colonies. Is that what you're suggesting?
Of course, everybody does it.
So then shouldn't the solution be to integrate them and mandate that they adopt your ways?
Why would they want to?
Isn't that the point of going to another country?
That's your opinion that they should. That doesn't mean that they share it. That means that they will maybe have to let go of their identity.
Instead of
what they are to become something else.
So instead of taking the identitarian approach and rejecting them, how about find a way, like focus on making them assimilate?
I have not rejected anyone. You seem to think that one thing correlates with another.
Okay.
Just because you pick your own something, that doesn't mean that you other. Yes, I prefer my own people. That does not mean, and this will be shocking to you, that doesn't mean that I hate everybody else. I prefer my own. Therefore, I will always side with my own. This is not natural for everybody else. If you ever listen to Tim Pool, which you have, he specifies this as well. Every other race has a racial consciousness. Whites do not. Most white people, liberals and most white people have what is called white guilt. They deny themselves. They have not racially aware. Black people know racially aware about themselves. Black powers and so forth.
I want to mention that
and so forth. So it doesn't exist.
I want to mention that Tim Pool is very, very much sensitive to the racial debate. it's a hot button issue for him because he's a product of miscegenation, right? He's a product of mixed races, where people had rejected mixed race around the time that he was born.
Oh, I have actually something to say about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Tim Pool is probably, and this might be interesting for you, has actually fans amongst what is known as identitary whites that he is referenced many times. He is, and those that have attacked him for it, I don't agree with them. I think that Tim Pool is anything which should be honorary white. I will give him that title. It is a thing, actually, not talked about it, but I would do it.
No, it reminds me.
It says, but I'm race, I don't belong anywhere. Yeah. For heaven's sake, I give him the title, the honorary white, and be done.
That actually sounds, and I don't want to, break Poe's law, but it sounds exactly like when the Nazis recognized the Japanese as an equal race.
Call it what you will. I'm not saying anyway, but what I mean is that Tim Pool has people from the far right that listens to him, and they actually have quoted him and said Tim Pool is right. So that he says that, oh, you didn't know that, did you?
Well, I do know that there are people that, here's the thing, I'm aware that he has a bit of following like that, a fringe following. Everybody does. Anyone that is centrist and that isn't far left is going to have a following from the right, because people who were originally left have been pushed towards the right. Now, they're not really right, but the norm and the perception is they're on the right. And so those who are already on the right get to mingle with those who were previously from the left and the center. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised any of that's going on, but it's a mistake to think of Pool is maybe even an icon for like white nationalists.
No, you miss quotes me here. You're thinking all wrong here. It is basically that Tim Pool is something very, very rare. He is honest. He treats everybody the same. I know that he doesn't like people like me, and I have no problem with it. I don't hate Tim Pool, nor would I burn down his house. And if I met him outside, I will have a beer with him. If he would be attacked for that, I would defend him. Do you understand? I like the person for who he is. You think that...
Yeah, would you like him for who he was
if
he was mixed race, but it wasn't white? Let's say that he was Korean and I don't know, Mexican, right? So much darker skin, maybe. Would you still feel that kind of a kinship with him? Or would you still say that he was an honorary white?
I will give him that. Then yeah. There actually is a pod in Sweden, and I normally go to this. I normally listen to actually two communists who has it. One of them is actually called. His name is Malcolm. He's black and has a big afro. There has actually been a pod who they talk to each other, so they know of each other. It actually was named honorary like white. So there is something like that. It is, it's something. You can interpret it as you will, but it's nothing bad, and it's nothing about going back to like Nazi Germany or anything like that. It's just something. I like the dude, so I'm giving him my, a little bit of love here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yes. I want to ask you another question. What?
I like Tim Pool, and I know others do as well.
Well, I like Tim Pool as well, but I like Tim Pool because he's not identitarian. He's anti-identitarian.
That's why I like him.
And he tries to be balanced. He tries to be unbiased. He recognizes when he is biased, and he actually does try to challenge that. I want to ask another question though, and I want to talk to you about the shootings that's been going on lately, especially the one that happened in El Paso. Do you think that maybe this ethno-nationalism is responsible for exactly what happened in El Paso, where someone decided to shoot people because of rhetoric, anti-immigrant rhetoric, and basically they looked at it as they are a threat to the white race, right? They're a threat to white Americans moving in and potentially taking jobs and taking over the culture. You don't think that maybe white identitarianism has helped to radicalize people like that? So maybe like it might seem innocuous, we're just looking after our own, But then it does scale up to, we're looking after our own, and these are a threat to our own, so we have to take them out. Don't think that those two things are connected.
Ask him.
No, but in your personal opinion, do you think that the beliefs that you're sharing are not responsible for the radicalization of people just like that?
Not at all.
Why?
Nationalism, as if you listen to, that's why I gave you also to the radical agenda. Are identitarian, or call it what you are, all of them have rejected violence as methods, have done so for years,
But,
have
so a lot of
that this is not who we are. Violence have never been. It is not here. It's not in Europe. It's not in America. It's not in anywhere we have this. Violence have never, ever been a core principle. On the contrary, it has been against it. People, and I know that, and this may sound funny to you, but a lot of the organizations actually have a de-radicalization when it comes to these types of things. Right. If this shooter would have been part of the Patriot Front, or AIM, or let's call others, RAM, or American Renaissance, or the Radical Agenda, or any of these, none in his manifest and none of his social describes that he has any contact with any other nationalistic organization. There is no proof of that.
It doesn't have to be part of an organization.
Its community, probably that would never happen.
So it doesn't have to be organized. He doesn't have to be part of a particular organization. For example, Antifa is not a particular organization necessarily. There are a lot of no, really. That's the beauty of it, and that's why it's hard to pin down Antifa, because they aren't organized, but they are able to share their agenda, and they can get people to mobilize based off of shared ideologies, and those ideologies are very radical. The thing I want to bring up is Nazi Germany didn't start off with violence. They did start off with ethno-nationalism. They did start off with this identitarianism and taking care of their own, and there was this racism. It scaled up to violence. It scales up. So any revolution, it starts off innocuous. And yeah, it might very well be peaceful. But as things ramp up, as things start to gain momentum, as the rhetoric becomes more powerful and divisive, people, even if it's not explicitly said, be violent towards these groups, it's almost implied. So Kristallnacht wasn't the government saying everybody needs to start bashing the windows and running Jewish people out of town. It was a natural progression of that ideology. And then eventually it led to the state taking action and becoming extremely violent and extremely inhumane. And so one of the biggest problems with identitarianism is it others the other side, right? It creates this division, and it says, these are our own, these are not our own. And if you're not our own, it's very easy to dehumanize. And if you dehumanize them, you can do whatever you want to them. That there's no crime. You're not murdering someone, right? You're disposing of them, right? So you stop looking at these atrocities as human rights violations, and you just look at it as something mundane. And that's the danger with this kind of mentality, is it renders evil as mundane.
I swear I heard some like, this is like leftist talking bullshit. Simple as that. Let's be honest about it. How many of you have you people of me have you met? Have you listened to any of our podcasts before? Have you gone into any of our meetings? What do you know about where we stand?
Oh, give me 1 second. I need to turn off the AC. All right, sorry.
Okay. Do you know?
So, for example, I know someone named Based Bell. Do you know who that is?
Nope, never heard of it.
Okay, well, she's otherwise known as the Based Southern Belle, and she's expressed ethno-nationalist white identitarianism, and she's expressed a concern of essentially an existential threat to white people. So it's not like I haven't been exposed to these ideas. I have. I think they're wrong. I think that it should not be a focus on race. It should be a focus on ideology. I honestly think that your skin color is incidental and something that you should be able to ignore. What you should be concerned with is the culture and the values associated with these people. And my concern is that the ideas that you would spread will help to radicalize people because it focuses too much on the superficial. And it really should actually look at something that's more potentially dangerous. So for example, people coming out of Somalia, I don't give a shit what their skin color is. My concern is radical Islam that comes with a lot of these people from Somalia. There are terrorists in Somalia. So maybe we should restrict immigration from those countries or do a very good job of vetting people coming in from those countries so that we know that they don't have radical Islamist ideas. For that matter, if there was, I'm sorry?
Sounds a bit racist here. Just
it's
saying.
Not about, none of this is race. It should never be about race. It should always be about ideas because the ideas are what infect minds. These
are
ideas,
you not using Islam as a pretext for not letting people in from Somalia?
Certainly that's what people are saying about Trump. People are saying that Donald Trump is using Islam as a pretext for letting people, or for permitting black people from entering the country. And the worry is that he's discriminating against people on the basis of skin color, but he's saying it's something else. I disagree with that. The thing is, I've seen what's been going on in throughout Europe, for example, and you'll have terrorists who have fair skin, but they are Islamists, and they'll drive trucks through crowds. It's not about the skin color, it's about the ideology. And focusing on what radicalizes someone, that's important. We need to find out what radicalizes someone and diffuse the situation, like address it, find out why their psychology is so delicate. Is it because did we bomb their homes? Did we kill their fathers? Right? Is it the online atmosphere where you're surrounded by faceless people spouting some horrible ideas, and so they're free to say whatever they want online. The beauty of being online is you get to be anonymous, and no one gets to hold you accountable for your potentially very dangerous ideas, right? I think that there are so many factors that can lead to radicalism, and those things need to be addressed. But we also have to do it in such a way that we don't alienate people's individual liberties, right?
I think that you are a bit confused here. You see yourself as an individual, I assume. Do you have any group preference at all?
I see myself as American, right?
Yeah, so, but I assume I've seen some rainbow flags on Twitter. Do you not recognize yourself with those people?
I share traits with, okay, so yeah, so I'm part of the LGBT community, right? That's fine.
So you have clicked up one way. All right, now it gets interesting.
Well, does it though? What's so bad about being LGBT?
I don't say that, and that's the same. Why is it bad to be clicking up with your own folks, with your own white people?
No one's saying clicking up with your own folks. It's the concern of creating a state, an ethno-nationalist state. That's the problem. When you decide, because when you do that, essentially you're creating a wall around, and that wall excludes others from entry. I have a problem with that. Now, if you're talking about a small private organization, and I'm not trying to endorse being part of the KKK. What I'm trying to say is if you're part of a small organization, let's say, and you separate on the basis of sex, a woman's only group, that's fine. You have your own individual needs, your own biological needs that only women can really understand. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be that way, but if you want to organize and separate on the basis of sex, fine. But when you're talking about race, there is no such thing as, like a black biology or a white biology. blacks and whites share the same DNA essentially, with only minor superficial variations that don't really change anything essentially. So the medicine that's good for a black person is medicine that's good for a white person, right?
But by the way, I will not go into it because, first of all, yes, you can go all Jerry Taylor and all of that stuff. I'm not going to do that because, first of all, it's boring. If you want to do that, go watch Jerry Taylor talk about IQ and that kind of shit. But the thing is that would you think that your Latin American friends should they actually have, if there is only Latin Americans or have a black area where there are only black people living there, no matter where they are, should they be forced into other areas and split up because of, well, they have built an ethno-state and that should not be allowed? Whether they have that as a thought or nothing like that. West Compton simply. There are areas in West Compton which is black. No one else lives there. Should they be forced?
Well,
because they have built an ethno-state, basically. Call it what you will. How, it doesn't matter. They have an ethno-state. Should they be forced into areas with Latinos, with people from Asia, and should they be forced
let me ask you, like, how much of these little ethno enclaves that exist, how much of those are by a deliberate design, and how much of it is because of economics? I think a lot of it has to. No, well, no, because if it's caused by economics, it can be solved by economics, right? So
it doesn't matter. I mean, you have the white liberals, for instance, clicking up. They live in the same area. They are for multiculturalism, but they don't want to have it in there.
Well, that's called hypocrisy. That's absolutely called hypocrisy, and those people should be called out for their hypocrisy. They have still built
themselves a white enclave, and they ain't letting no one come in. There is no call today that they should. Should you go into those areas, Beverly Hills, where rich white people live, and tell them that, sorry, we are going to take people from Chinatown and Compton, and they're going to smack in there. Should you do that? And what do you think they would say? Because they have an ethno state.
So again, the thing about those ethno states is, there's no law that's sanctioning any of this behavior that says that this is the way it's supposed to be or how you should be doing that. You have a free market. The markets tend to move in that direction, right? So the rich tend to be white people, and so they tend to aggregate around other white people. Now, in any of those areas you've described, you still have some diversity by those that manage to get out of their poverty and rise up, become famous, and move to places like Beverly Hills. So you still have blacks and Latinos.
Go to Beverly Hills, to the rich areas, and see how much diversity.
Right, and so that actually highlights the income inequality and the lack of opportunities between or among minorities. So it's not like anyone's in. Well, hopefully, because otherwise, what you're describing is a racist conspiracy, and that's something that should be addressed if there's any validity.
Because I have a close relative that actually has this view. She's for multiculturalism, but damn, she don't want to have it aired. This is not unheard of where I live.
It's gross. It's gross and it's non-American. It's gross and it's non-American, and anyone that really
is what it is. You think that Americans, for instance, you have a concept of people not having a conscience of who they are, clicking up with who they are. This is nature as we are. We tend to stick with our own.
So I want to be really careful though.
So you can see that
you're using a naturalist argument, right? You're saying this is nature. There are a lot of things. Listen.
This is what we are, because simply kids the same. Kids, when they're born, they look at other races and they get scared. This is biological. So, the same in schools. You see those that click up.
I want to stop you there real quick. Okay, yeah, a lot of things you could describe as natural. There are a lot of things that are natural that are morally wrong. What makes us human is our mind, it's our ideas, it's our social intelligence, right? What separates us from the beast. There are a lot of things in nature, for example, incest and rape and murder. Those are perfectly natural. There's genocide. There's euthanasia, where they kill the weak. They'll kill the weakest among their pups, right? That does exist in nature. That doesn't make it right.
No,
So
that's
we recognize that just because something is natural doesn't make it right. We're above that. We are beyond our animal programming, beyond our instincts. We have to work
that is
against
an
them.
interesting argument. People tend to look at them as so civilized. We are so modern. Nature doesn't affect us. That's a crock of bull. Simply that and who are you to judge me for not wanting to click up with my own? And you talk about this of an ethno state, it should be forced. Believe me, if you have a black area or you have a white area, let's say that all the American ethno-nationalists were to move to an area, how many other do you think would move there? They don't have to tell anyone. There ain't no black people's gonna move there. It's no non-whites that's gonna move there for the same reason. You have like the next door neighbor is like Ku Klux Klan or Jerry Taylor or someone else. It's not gonna happen. It's natural.
But just because it's natural doesn't mean it's right, though. And so that's the thing.
Judge
So
what is right and what is wrong.
are you getting relativistic now?
No, it's the moral of the thing. You having a moral argument. You say this isn't right. That's because of your morals.
Well, guess what? The American morals are pretty clear, right? It's again, it's enshrined in our Constitution. All men are created equal, right? This is something we believe. We believe that we have. Well, I don't think that explicit language. But the point is, it is enumerated in our rights, which is implicit of our values.
Your biggest problem is choice. People choose to live with their own for various reasons. Has not to do with excluding anybody else. It's because they speak the same language. If I were to go outside of where I live to another country, people like me would build their own little community. We will speak the same language. We will be more than we are nationalistic and we will new. This is natural. The same happens for all other people. They go super for the tradition.
You know what? Tribalism is natural. It doesn't mean it's right. Tribalism is exactly what's destroying our country right now. It's exactly the thing that we need to stop. It is everywhere.
Your LGBT is tribal.
No, here's the thing. All of this, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. The point is, all of this may very well be natural, but it is destroying everything that we've worked for all these centuries.
Or that you are denying what is obvious. You are fighting what is obvious.
Well, no, everything that we do, everything about modern society is a fight. Everything about modern society is a fight against nature. It is trying to impose order on something that is a living, breathing thing, right? But it doesn't matter because it still allows us to do things we otherwise could never do, achieve great things. It allows us to bring together diverse minds, people from many different backgrounds. Albert Einstein was Jewish, right? He was like German Jewish. So if we had this ethno-nationalist state, we might not have taken him in, right? Some of the most brilliant minds we would have excluded on those tribalist bases. And I think that's.
I think there is a conflict here, and there isn't a conflict. Just because America, for instance, is a country, is that a direct conflict with other countries in like Canada and Mexico? Is there a ongoing Cold War or conflict with your neighbors? The state you live in, is there conflict with another state? I mean, this is an argument that one has to, because you prefer chocolate, thus you hate vanilla.
Okay, so let's say this. Tell me about your ethno-national state. Tell me how that plays out and where minorities fit in.
First of all, I don't exist.
You don't exist.
No.
Okay.
I am not recognized as an ethnic people where I live.
Okay, but let's say that your tribe. Let's say your tribe that you subscribe to. Let's say that you get your way, right? Let's say that Sweden becomes an ethno-national state. What then? What happens? Well, let's say it happens to be in your favor, right? So let's say that things favor your situation where you get Sweden is a white nationalist state right now. What happens to the minorities there?
Minorities, if you're talking to minorities as it is, first of all, you can give them some money to move, or if yes,
So you,
this is
in other words, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
this is actually already practice where I live. They also try that. No one does it. To be frank, this is an argument that will not happen. Where I live, there won't be that it cannot turn back to white. That is an acceptance.
Right.
If you are to do so, you have to do it with violence and force in some ways.
But didn't you say that you oppose violence? Didn't you
What?
just say that you oppose violence? That your
Yes,
side.
that's correct. That is why I will not. I understand what you mean, but I don't think it will happen. Most likely, what happened in America, if we are talking about it, is, and this is already in the country I have, there is already a formation of an area where the, so to speak, white people will live. So it's already building an ethno-state. An ethno-state can easily be built, and you already have it in South Africa, for instance, Orania, the same thing. It's basically an ethno-state.
Okay, I don't know enough about this. Is it this? The ethno-state in South Africa is a white ethno-state?
Yeah, Orania, yes.
Okay, I don't know anything about that situation. So.
South Africa, it's a living ethno-state, basically. They live there, and if you're not white, you are not allowed to live there, basically.
Okay, you don't see that's a problem? No, so it's one thing to group up with your own people and click together. It's another to outwardly exclude and actually drive out people that are not your own.
Not at all. They bought the lands, they built the town, they basically own everything. It's their town. They built it up from the ground up.
And so they have the right to kick people off their lands who
they have the full right, as America has the full right to kick people out of America if they don't agree with American law, or as America sees that you should be. Is that not correct?
The ones that we kick out are non-citizens. We're not going to kick out American citizens.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't really matter. I mean, America has full rights to kick out anyone they want.
No, we don't. Our laws protect us against exactly that.
That's simple. You can kick people out of your country you have the laws and stuff like that, but you can't have that. Every nation can choose if a person can live in the country or not. The same is your house. If a person comes into where you live and is very obnoxious, you can choose to kick him out, or you can choose not to let him in.
Okay, if that person's on the lease, then I can't kick him out. If that person has co-signed a mortgage, I can't kick him out.
Yeah, well, that's your. But if you go back to Orania here, you should actually, if you're interested in these things, you should actually look that up.
Because I'm not going to support anything like that. I will never support.
No, it doesn't matter. But I'm giving you the tips here. If you're talking about white ethno-states, this is a full function of. They built that for themselves. First of all, South Africans are being murdered today by black people. Their lands are being stolen.
So do you not think that maybe that by doing what they're doing as a reaction against them, it's not creating a feedback loop? It's creating mutual hatred? You don't think that any of that's happening? So like maybe the people in South Africa affect the whites. The whites end up doing something that affects the blacks, right? So it's almost... this rivalry is going to end up creating a tension that will potentially lead to a genocide of one or the other or both, maybe mutually assured.
Yeah, or the other one, black people can actually build something for themselves. They can go the same route as people of Orania have. There is nothing that says, or we think that black people can't build things. They can build their own nations. They can build their own stuff. The same thing, the same as everybody else. You have that right to build your own things, your own stores, your own towns. And as much as money is pumped in from other countries, in the black people of South Africa have enough money. They even bought like fighter jets for millions and millions of dollars while their people are starving, uneducated, live in ghettos. Do you understand that they can fix this, but have chosen another path? This is just
that's not against the people. That's against the leaders.
Are the whites to be? attacked because of other people's what they inept to do or don't want to do.
I think the problem is it's looking at it's pointing the finger, blaming the wrong problem. It's not that other race. It's their leaders. It's individuals doing horrible things that are screwing over their
and the
peoples.
black people can choose their own leaders. They can kick him off. They can do whatever they want.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. The thing about democracy is it's vastly an illusion. We think we have the freedom of choice, but who gives us our choices? Like in America, for example, we think that we can choose our candidates, but who gives them airtime, right? Well, we know that money talks. We know that the more money you put into a campaign, the more you can advertise. But there's also the extra advertising you get when the media decides to focus on a particular candidate, right? Or if they choose to cut someone's mic while they're up on the podium. So it's a rigged democracy. We also know that during the primary for 2016 for the Democrats, that the DNC decided that they wanted Hillary. One way or the other, they're going to get Hillary. So the primary was a formality, but they had already decided that they were going to get Hillary, right? That was a disgusting disgrace. But the good news was that it was exposed. People saw that it was an illusion. And hopefully people remember that it was an illusion, and then you can call them out on their shit. One of the good things that Andrew Yang is doing, and like a Chinese American who we should support, right? I mean, diversity is a good thing, right? Thing is, one great thing that he's doing that a lot of others haven't done is he's sharing the experience of running for office with social media and highlighting when the media pulls shit on him, right? I think that's a really good thing, because then you can show this is where the corruption is. Show the people that the democracy is breaking down because of these interferences. So I don't blame the people, blame the system and change that system. And when the people in a democracy vote in a way that you think is stupid or wrong, don't even necessarily blame them. Blame the system that was forced on them, that helped them to make pre-selected choices, right? So
we all have choices, and go back to an old classical when it comes to our circuit, the 14 words. You secure your people's existence. And
our people, though, in the United States, our people are a diverse population. Our people aren't focused on race. When we created this country, we didn't create a country for the white man.
If you don't like the system, you have two choices. Either you fight it or you not. I mean, Hillary and I heard that from America. They bitched about, but Hillary won the popular vote. That's not how it is. Everybody knows the rules of the system. If they don't know the rules, they have to learn. It's like you playing a game. If you don't understand the rules of what you're playing, you might lose. Get educated, know what you are doing, and know what you're supposed. This is how the system works.
But the thing is, not everybody is educated. Not everybody is educated. Not everybody does have the same benefits of being educated. A lot of us are distracted. Economics certainly do a good job at keeping us occupied with just trying to survive on a day-to-day basis. You cannot blame the people. You can blame the system, and you can blame the people that run that system, that know better and don't care.
Don't you think that people have a responsibility for what they do?
To a certain degree, absolutely. But the thing is, you cannot be held accountable for what you don't know. You cannot be held accountable.
That is no one's fault than your own.
Not true. Not true. For example, if someone puts a booby trap by my front door, I don't know that booby trap is there. I don't know to look for it. I'm going to trip the trap and I'm going to blow myself up, right? You can't say, well, you should have known better. You should have known to look for traps. Why? Why should I know that? That's an absurdity. So there are so many absurdities.
I understand it's absurdity, but in every system there is always going to be some anomaly where you're talking about. What I mean is that you have a system, a democratic system, and I agree with you that democracy is not the best. People vote for their leaders. Most people that vote don't give a shit about what politics, what will happen. Most people look at, this will benefit me in this case, blah blah blah, lower taxes, something. They vote for vote after what they feel themselves. In this individualist society, and you are a prime example of this, thinking very much about yourself. In your world, you will have a problem. If let me say, I have heard many liberal things here, so yes, somewhat you can explain if I'm wrong enough. But let's say that I'm right here. You as an individual in a world simple as this, what do you think is going to happen when people vote after race, vote after clan, religion? You will be crushed. You don't like it. That doesn't matter. Reality is this: if people click up by racial lines, by religion as Muslims, or they run up by Christian or something like that, then
we had something like that,
reality will come at you.
Hold on. So there are a couple of things to that. Depending on how they vote, but let's say the people vote for a law. Like let's say there's a referendum. Let's say there's a state law that comes up in November for the state of Arizona, and that state law says we're going to kick out all the Mexicans. Even if the people vote for that, that doesn't mean that it's constitutional. It means that the courts can throw it out. It also means that the people who are here should actually have a right and duty to rebel against an unlawful law. Just because it's in law doesn't mean it's actually just, right? So you can disobey that law, and you can rebel against that law, and you have a duty as a patriot to reject that law, right? Our founding fathers told us to do that. Our founding fathers told us that the Tree of Liberty.
How?
Our founding fathers told us that the Tree of Liberty occasionally needs to be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants, right? So if things get that bad to where our values have just gone completely out the window and we decide to do some horrible, atrocious things, we have a duty to fight against it. So if for example, the situation at our border really turned into what happened in Germany with death camps, where people are worked to death and experimented on and all that shit, instead of just being detained until they can go see their day in court, if it really devolved into what the left-wing media is trying to say that it is, we all have a duty to stop that. And I would be the first out there to fight against ICE and our border patrol. Absolutely. The thing is, things aren't what we're painting them out to be. And we got to be careful about what reality is. There is some bit of individual responsibility where we should at least try. At least maybe you could say that you want to say that it's your individual duty to educate yourself. It's more like those that do know something, it's their duty to educate those around them. It's their duty to share knowledge about why the system isn't working, how to fix it, how to work against it, so that noblesse oblige, right? The obligation of the nobles, right? Those most privileged, they have a duty to those who don't have, right? Those who are without. So, for example, me sharing my ideas on social media, I'm doing this because I feel an obligation to educate people on what's going on. I want to pursue truth and justice, the American way, right? That's what we're about. And I think that's something that's, even if those of us who are ignorant, at least if we're trying, that's something that's a noble goal.
Well, let's talk about the American way. It's an interesting one. America is very unique. You have something, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, it's the Constitution. It's very much, well, what should we say, unique in such a sense. The American way, the way you are, would you say that is something uniquely for you?
No. It's not unique.
The American attitude, the American culture, as it is in America, is Canada or Mexico.
For or with are two different things, right? So uniquely with Americans, I would say, as a whole, yes. Individually, no. Right? So obviously you have people who are Americans who aren't Americans yet. People who have that American spirit, that American heart, who immigrate here and follow our our policies to become Americans. They were always Americans. They just had to go through the steps to validate that, right? And I understand that, and I respect that. And even the immigrants who are coming here looking for a better way of life because they believe in our freedoms, I sympathize with them. Don't think I don't. The issue is that there are those that want to take those shortcuts, and there are some of those who don't want to follow our ways, that don't want to respect our laws. Those are the ones that you want to stop, right? But our way of life, our ideals, they aren't. Of course, they're not going to be unique to America. It's just as a whole, we've come together and worked together to make it possible, right?
It's something you are willing to defend. Are you willing to die for your
my country
your nation
and for my beliefs? Sure, absolutely. Yes. Am I willing to die to defend others? Absolutely.
All right. So then I assume that this sounds very much that you have some form of preference. It may not be based around race, but you have something. My point is simply that everybody, if it is through religion, if it is through ethnic lines, it is through sexuality or gender or anything, people click up, and there are different versions of this, and there are different.
Clicking up is not the same as creating a barrier.
So humanity is a social animal. It is all natural for people. Liberalism is the most unnatural thing there is.
Liberalism, define liberalism.
To be, first of all, to think only about yourself, to care about nothing else than yourself. Put yourself above anything else. It's all about me.
Well, on the fundamental level, you have to put yourself first. You can't help those until you help yourself, right? It's only when your needs are met that you have a conflict when you put yourself above those around you, right? When you get really greedy and instead of realizing that I don't need to keep making money, I don't need to keep trying to take all these resources, all this wealth, I don't need to do that. And the thing is, it actually is unhealthy for someone to focus too much on themselves. We actually do need others around us. We need a community. You cannot live in isolation. Well, some people have the mentality where they can live in isolation, but no one can live in complete isolation because we rely on one another for resources. The problem is when you start to look at other people as resources, as a means to an end.
That's not quite true, though. There are a lot of people, and what was it that suicide rates goes up all around young people? I would say that in America and very much also in Europe, this liberalism, as it is known, is actually alienating people. You walk around in society, you have a lot of people, but yet you still feel alone.
There's a reason for that. Hold on. There's a reason why people feel alone.
What I stand for and what I say is simply that I see white people and I see them as my brothers, as my sister, as they are a part of who I am, the very essence of what I am. I am willing to help my brother and stand amongst my brothers. You show me that you are a brother until you are not.
Why can't you just look at them as humans, though? Why can't you just look at all humans in exactly the same way? Is that this black man is my brother, this Asian girl is my sister? Why does it have to be on the basis of race?
Insights for you then. Can you guess which there is? If you go into nationalist circles, you will find a lot of Cuban people actually.
Okay.
And you would think that, but they're not white, so they are not accepted. On the contrary, there is a lot of people on the far right that has people from Jewish open Zionist that has been speakers and everything. People think of us as we like hillbillies, don't associate with others.
Are you suggesting that Israeli Zionists are far right?
There are people in Israel, which is very much about standing for the right. And if you were to listen actually to it, there is actually a lot of far right people, as they be called, had actually started to talk to people in Israel as well. There is a YouTuber called Halsey, He's an open Israel friend. I don't know if I could call him Zionist, but there has been people who has openly declared themselves a Zionist that has walked. Jared Taylor, American Renaissance. He has people of Jewish descent that is a part of it and as speakers. This Halsey actually is a very, I still think they are, is a friend of Nick Fuentes. I wouldn't call him alt-right, but he is, well, I would say he's a friend of white people. And they actually...
Don't you think that...
People keep thinking that we are some form of others. If you were to understand us, we actually... I listen to communist pods. This is a norm, basically.
Okay, so I want to ask you something. I want to play out a scenario.
We know a lot of things. We don't live in a bubble. People think that because we pick who we are, we live in from a bubble. That's not correct. That is some stupid thing that the left pushes.
Okay, so I don't think. Well, I think there, to some degree, there is truth about the bubble, and that's just because of the way social media is designed, creates these ideological bubbles. Now, I want to mention though. I want to play out your scenario.
YouTube.
Let's play out your scenario. Let's say that in this country right now, look at all the diverse races. Imagine that they all create their own little enclaves and create their own little ethno-nationalist states. So instead of being 50 states, you have 100 ethno-nationalist states, right? Each state is smaller. They have fewer resources. They start running out of resources. The other states decide they don't want to share resources. What do? You fight them, right? You don't think that when you get smaller like that, to that degree, and you start othering the other side, that there is some incentive to take from the other side because they're different? Because you wouldn't take from your brother, but you will take from your neighbor who's different than you, right?
You know, when that happens, you don't have a nation.
Right. So, but you have an
nation is based upon something. There has to have something that is simply. What you're talking about is a nightmare scenario. I know that. Why people talk about ethnostates, why I choose to be who I am is not of choice. It is of necessity. My people, white people, are dying out. We are under constantly attack. Anti-white agenda, cultural Marxism, and so forth. We are clicking up of necessity. The same thing as whites do in prison. They click up not because they might want to, but they click up because they have to. White people are turning everywhere they are into a minority.
But no one looks at a prison system and says that that's an ideal situation. So you're looking at people in a prison system. You're talking about, like, when it comes to like the hierarchy of needs, you're talking about fundamental survival, right? And that is not an ideal situation. It is not sustainable.
But it is a reality.
It's something that you should try and work against. You should try and dissolve that. No one wants to have that in prison, and you should absolutely try to reform that in prison.
Can you then, let's say, can you stop, for instance, media to have an anti-white agenda? Is that possible? Can you stop?
Well, hold on. The media didn't always used to have that anti-white agenda. They chose the powers that be. No, listen. The powers that be, those that have the money to give a platform, chose to amplify the voices of these identitarians, and help to separate us on racial lines. That can be undone. We can stop giving them a voice.
Do you know, I have a question. Do you know who is actually talking most about race and gender and so forth? Who actually started all of this?
Yeah. Well, what's her name? Robin DiAngelo is the one that coined the term white fragility. She's one of those people. She's a white person.
But there is a special group actually, both in Europe and America, that is more obsessed with race, gender, and all of it than anybody else, and is far more than we are. We are doing it because we have to. They are doing it because they want to. Can you name that?
I don't know.
And this is one of the reasons why we're clicking up, why we even exist.
Oh, okay. Please elaborate. Tell me who this is.
The left.
Okay, but that's not a single identity. It's a collective. The left is a collective.
Call it what you will. All people, collective as it is. But there are no one else to talk more about race and gender and all of it. If they would have kept their mouth shut, this would never happen.
But again, there are those of us, because I'm left wing, right? I don't believe in that. It's those on the far left who have been amplified. Their voices have been amplified, and that they end up silencing. In many cases, they'll deplatform those of us who are rational, so that only their voices are heard.
Have you ever gone to them and tell them to shut the fuck up?
Sometimes, yeah, on Twitter, I have told them.
Yes, but would you actually go to one of their meetings? Would you go to a third wave feminist and talk and say, oh, this toxic masculinity, white man is all bad, blah blah blah.
If I had the opportunity to attend one of these and they had like Q&A at the end, don't think that I wouldn't do that. Don't think that I wouldn't call them out on their bullshit and ask them why they think it's okay to be so divisive. Because that's the thing.
What actually, there is something here. This and then this Iranian dude who killed a lot of people at that garlic festival. He's actually, I don't know if you ever read it. The book Might is Right. And this is a principle. This affects everybody. The left as it is, the little vocal part of the left now dictates terms for all people from the left. You can agree or not. They are the loudest. They set the agenda. They tell everything. They are powerful. They're telling me as well. All nationalists have to do is we have to know what the hell next retarded thing they will come up with, because we have to be in the know. That's why we cannot live in a bubble. We cannot live separate from the society. We have to know, because the decisions they are, and you can see that tonight. You can see it now. They're pushing to make a person like me into a terrorist. For some fucking idiot.
The thing is, there are look at the ones who are doing the shooting. The ones who are doing the shootings, by and large, those doing the shootings, do subscribe to your ideology or your shared ideology. And maybe it's not perfect, it's not 100% congruent. And maybe you say for you that violence isn't part of it.
Are you
for a lot of people?
For that?
I'm sorry.
Are you guilty for what Antifa did, or the Weatherman, or Bannerhof, or the Red Fraction Army? Are you guilty of them? Yes, you prescribe to the left.
So here's the thing, though. I'm not an identitarian, right? So I'm not part of that.
You identify
as yes, but there are degrees. For example, you're right. You are so far right that people would call you far right. And there's a division, and maybe it's not a clear division, but there is a division, and that division is this extreme ideology that says that things not only is separation of races okay, but it's necessary. That division is where a lot of people would just cut you off right there and say, nope, I want nothing to do with you. If you told Ben Shapiro, a Jewish man, a Jewish conservative man, that this is where you stand, he would say, go fuck yourself. He would.
And I would tell the same to him. Jewish people, as you told them, there is no other group that is so much in group preference. Actually, Jewish people really is really thinking about ethno. There is people actually where I live. They have actually married people who are not Jewish, and there has been questions and there have been problems. Jewish people likes to marry Jewish people. I'm fine with it. I actually support it.
But Jewish isn't a race. Being Jewish isn't a race. So anyone can go to Israel who is Jewish. You can be a black Jew.
Race is a part of an ethnicity. You think about race. Ethnicity would be the much better. When if you talk about ethnicity, then culture, language, race is a part of it. Ethnicity is something else.
I know, but your focus on ethno-nationalism is a separation of races.
I'm not the only one. There is a lot of other people who does it.
It doesn't mean it's right. It absolutely doesn't mean it's right, and it's something that we should be trying to work against. The thing is,
what
you shouldn't want to. You shouldn't try to reinforce a system that says that you should keep a separation of races on the basis of immutable characteristics. there's no reason behind it. There's no
If,
logic behind it. If you want to talk
honest,
about,
let's be
it's
honest here. If 10,000 of us were to move to an area and say and build families or something, how would that affect you and the rest of America?
well, it depends on how you did it, right? So if you try to do,
There are lots of small towns in America which is basically no one lives in.
right.
If we were to move into those towns, we were to stop up our own shop, we will build our own economy, and we will build families and build all what we do after what we have. And there is no one else than us
Try
living
to
there.
create an exclusive society. If you did that, but then by all means, come over here. But I don't care. It doesn't matter. But if you try to create an exclusive society that forbids anyone of a particular race or sexuality, you have a problem. We have a problem.
Would you come? Would you come over and visit?
Probably not.
Why?
And the reason why?
Why did you?
Because I wouldn't want to associate with racists.
Yeah, there you have it. Now you already, first of all, you understand how that's work. How many ethnic black areas have you been in your life?
Quite a few. I grew up in one.
All right, there you go. But you wouldn't go to an area where all of them people think the same, would be called it racist. I don't see myself as
the thing is, it's not that the area is a bunch of people that think the same. That's not the problem. It's if you have an area that specifically excludes others for being different.
I didn't exclude you, did I? I told you were welcome.
That's because I'm white.
No, it doesn't matter. Bring all your bring your black friends as well.
And are they allowed to move into the area?
If they so chooses and if they think they wanted to, come on.
And then good, and then hopefully they'll mingle with your kids, and then your kids will realize that your ethno-nationalist ideas are stupid, and then we'll have a more prosperous nation.
You seem to have a very crooked view of us. We actually have people label us as Nazis, as racist, and everything. First of all, I wish to educate you. There are two big strands when it comes to so-called far right. You have the National Socialistic, and the biggest is the Nordic resistance movement, and then you have the identitarians. You have it in AIM in America, American identitarians, and so forth. You have identitarians in Europe. Identitarians and National Socialists are two different. Identitarian is the dominant factor. People keep thinking about you going back to Nazi Germany and talk about that. Frankly, I couldn't give a fuck about Hitler. I don't care about that. That is irrelevant for me. I do believe that the Holocaust is there, and so
but
forth.
Do you sympathize with the Holocaust? Do you think that what Hitler did with his final solution was appropriate?
Well, my personal view, no.
All right, let me ask you another question. This is a question I was thinking about earlier. What are your thoughts on Breivik?
First of all, he is, I wouldn't call him a nationalist, ethno-nationalist at all. He's a counter-jihadist.
Okay, but don't you think that your side tends to sympathize exactly with that?
No.
No?
There is no one that, they are,
because
if you would listen to the video.
New Zealand shooter said that this guy was his idol.
Yes, let me explain that. There are people within the nationalistic movement, and this is probably the cause to what happened in El Paso. So you better listen now, carefully. There are people who wants to burn everything down. They want everything to be turned into ashes, and therefore they can build a new nation. They are accelerationists. That's the technical term for them. These people have been rejected across the board of nationalistic movements. And probably the El Paso kid is one of them. If you read what I just said and you read his manifesto and his words, this will become clear. He wanted people to burn, and they live on 4chan and 8chan. These are not something that nationalistic, like myself, visits.
But let me ask you a question, though. Someone does that evil. Someone commits that evil and burns it all down, right? Would you take advantage of that? Would you build on top of that? Would you be like, well, that wasn't evil, but you know what? I'm going to make use of that. You know, like someone committed an evil that I absolutely oppose. But maybe it was a necessary evil. Maybe we can work with it. Did you like? Are you sympathetic in some way to that?
First of all, I believe that if you build something on violence, it will never be good. It will always be war. You can see that it is simply in Africa. People have a dictators, they kill the dictators, they put a new one. It continues. There is no saying. First of all, I would prevent it at what I could. And there is something. And right now, people are censoring us and they are attacking us on all fronts. As I told you, many nationalist movements have a calming effect. They demand things, and there are differences. You talked before with your Michael here about governments actually interfering in different organizations for their own benefits, groups and so forth. We don't know if the guy from El Paso actually is a left-winger who actually is also wants everything to start a so-called race war. Or political war. We have no idea. There is very little. All we have is his manifesto. That is it. We don't know who he is. There is no whatsoever information about him. Politically more than a manifest. And no one has ever said that he has written it. Most people speculate that he probably have, but it is not defined yet. Government haven't said that. This is as it is. We don't know how it is. And you talk about war. Accelerationists is what you are going to see, a lot of them. And these people are willing to burn everything down. Nationalists has always wanted to build things. We think about family structure, building something. We are not interested in burning things down. We are not interested in war. We're not interested in violence. We will defend ourselves.
Yeah, but let me ask you. So, okay, so that's fair. Okay, let's say to take you at your word, and I say that.
Don't have to.
Whoever, no. Give me a second.
And you will be confined.
Give me a second. Let's say that all this is true, and that you have a bunch of people that agree with that. But you're going to have people that are attracted to that side, but they're not going to buy into all of it. They're going to gravitate towards your side, but they aren't going to have those same limits. And they're going to build off of what you created, and they're going to take it to the next extreme. Right? All right. How can you assure that they're not going to do that?
Really something. Then you will simply tell everybody that is gay, that is Muslim, or have any view at all about something, political, religious, everybody should abandon it and keep their mouth shut. No, then they will have no one have ever a reason to do anything that is out of it. People have their own free will. We can stop people. We can stop violent people as much as we can. But
the thing is, it's a little bit absurd. You're getting a little bit absurd because we can predict how things will build off of what you're talking about. In spite of what your own personal ideology is, we can predict how people will build off of it and how it will escalate and how it will get worse. If you can predict that, then you need to take measures to prevent that. Right? It is a responsibility of.
We can only do as much as we can, and that is actually what is done. And none ever talks about this. What we do. These ideas are out there. We will not go away. It's not going to happen. We want to secure for something for our people. We stand for something. You may think that is wrong. Fine, I can understand it. I know exactly. I have a guess.
It really does go against the American way. And if I ever saw someone try to set something up like that over here, if you had a presence on Twitter, right? If you had a real presence on Twitter, I would try to shut you down. Now, I wouldn't try to shut you down with deplatform you. By all means, if you want to say something that is entirely fallacious, say it. I'm going to make fun of you. I'm going to call you out on your shit, right? This kind of conversation I would have on Twitter, and hopefully more people would see it and hear reason, and I know a lot would agree with me.
Well, the
thing is, you would get opposition. The weird thing, though, is that on Twitter, you would get opposition from the very people that would otherwise agree with you just because they're on the other side. So some of those identitarians that are, gay or black or whatever, or just pick any identity that the collective leftists adopt, they would oppose you, but they would still hold true some of your ideas, and that's actually that might be even more dangerous because I think maybe it's insidious because, and maybe this is an argument against free speech, I don't know, but it's insidious because while you're opposing someone, you can still actively absorb their ideology. And that's kind
You're
of scary.
thinking of this as a bad thing. If you were to have any knowledge about us, we actually is so very open for conversation. As I told you,
Well,
there are
I know.
Jewish people, there are black people, there are people of diverse ethnic who actually sits by us by our tables, have conversation, and it has never been violent in any form. We are openly want to talk to everybody. This has been denied. The reason you see on TV that talk about us, they dare not to invite any of us, because if everybody knew
no
that we
one
were
wants to
reasonable.
platform your ideas. No one wants to give a platform to your ideas because they're considered dangerous, and I understand why they're considered dangerous.
Why would we
But
not
I
be?
also think that at least, at the very least,
Dangerous? We would not
this
be
is,
seen as monsters.
well, listen, this is why I'm not letting you just grandstand and just talk the whole time and lecture me about this. I'm challenging your ideas because I disagree with your ideas. So it's okay for you to be on a platform as long as you're challenged. But if you just have the podium and no one else is challenging you, that's when we have a problem. So
that is not what I want. I want honest discussion, and that has always been part of the right-wing way, because there's only when you talk with others people you can find sharp your own ideas. The things that you believe in is probably very much live in our system as well. We also believe in these things, and it has been openly talked, so there is no, like, we have our ways and that's the only way. There are lots of theories. There is wide discussion about various subjects and tested theories about when it comes to what we believe in, how we see things. There has been a wild discussion about religion. Some people reject the church, some people do not. It has been discussion about it. So there is a wide discussion. On the right, we are open for all ideas. We let people in from open Zionists, Jewish people, all kinds of races to come and see us and talk to us. And there has never been any fights. Look at on Twitter. No one has ever said that any organization of us have propagated violence against anyone else. That's never happened.
And even if I say that that might be true, people will gravitate towards you, but they won't eat all of what you're feeding them.
I don't expect to.
They'll pick and choose, and then they'll move to the next table that has more extreme stuff to offer. So that's the thing, is that you're that stepping stone. Your ideology is that stepping stone that leads to further and further extremism. And it's where a lot of us will cut you off right then and there, because we know once you get to that point, it pretty much is the point of no return. Because almost no one, very few, will stay exactly where you are with your ideology.
Why am I extreme, by the way? Have anything I have said here been extreme? And can you point out what it is?
All right. It's extreme because it chooses to exclude, right? And
not at all.
Instead of being, and so you can have, so you got two different extremes, right? One is one culture, monoculture, ethnic national state, right? And then you have such increased diversity that there's incoherence, right? And then you have that in the middle that is some diversity, right, with some play in between, where you can have people aggregate a little bit to a bit of a monoculture. You can have them click up, but not have a system reinforce that, and so that still encourages that diversity, right? So yours is the opposite side of the far, some of the far left pro-diversity, and the thing about the left is it says one thing and it does another, and that's one of the hypocrisies that we have to address with my side, and I absolutely do. So any of the identitarianism, I oppose. But when they say diversity is our strength, I agree with that. We need diversity. We need different ideas. We need different cultures. I love eating Mexican food. I love eating Indian food. I love the different clothes and the different customs that I see, and some things from other cultures that we don't have. Like, for example,
I have a question for you. on that subject.
Yeah.
If diversity is your strength, why do you have to force it upon others? If it was natural for people to intermix and intermingle with each other, wouldn't that happen
Because
naturally?
it has to do with, hold on, it has to do with paradigms. Once a paradigm is set, it's hard to get out of it, right? So I've said this before on different platforms many times. A deviation over time becomes the norm over time becomes the rule. So if it becomes normal for people to segregate over time, that becomes the rule where you have to segregate. That is something you cannot tolerate. So that's when you need intervention. So if you have people that, if over time, on their own, people just want to do their own thing and they tend to click up and aggregate, boys here, girls here, whites here, blacks here, that's fine. But if you actually let it get to that scale where they actually start saying, you have to be this way, you cannot have this inclusion, you got to shut that down. You've got to intervene. You need some kind of
And
real...
how does that come? You mean that that is a natural occurrence of people?
It's a human tendency to make into law that which is the norm, right?
And what is that law?
So, no, it's just different norms. So anything as a social convention, anything that is taken as normal becomes law. Homosexuality, for example, has existed for as long as mankind has been around, right? But when over time, societies at one point or another outlawed homosexuality because the norm was heterosexuality, right? This is a problem. You should allow for that.
It's still a heterosexuality.
Well, you could say that. I think that humans actually have a more of the natural tendency for humans could actually be bisexual. It's just social norms.
Yes, I heard of that. And there is actually, women are more tendency to do that. Men, once they pick a gender, they actually pick towards it. It's funny how that works. By the way, I'm hearing you supporting my theory here. What you don't realize is nature by itself. You are trying to force people into some form of idea. Diversity is your strength. It's just unnatural. It's just a political idea of something that has been rejected and is rejected in America today. It is an idea.
No, I'm not saying that it's not rejected. It is rejected by a lot of people. It's rejected by identitarians.
And you do not learn.
But
why
just
do you
because it's rejected doesn't mean it's not
rejected?
right. The thing is that there are enough of us that still believe in the value in diversity.
Isn't that violence against others? Do you not think that other people should pick and choose what they want to believe?
No. Sure, they can do that, but you win out through education, right? Through leading by example. You lead by example.
People in something that has no base in nature, nor has it in these people. There is no ground for it. You indoctrinate people into something.
Everything about human society is unnatural, all right? The fact that we live in houses, air-conditioned houses, is unnatural. That doesn't mean that that's something that we should move away from. It doesn't mean
very natural.
Everything that we do, but the fact, even our method of communication is unnatural. We build up to these unnatural means, these ways of life, because of convenience. But they're still unnatural. It doesn't mean that we should walk away from it. It doesn't mean that there's no value in it, right? So
true, but I would still argue that it is very natural.
You know something else that's natural? What's natural is vaccines, or sorry, not vaccines, but diseases. Diseases are perfectly natural. They occur in nature. How people contract them, perfectly natural. Yet we have diseases, we have cures that go against nature. Why? Because
there are actually people who actually doesn't do that. They're religious folks that
and that's stupid. And hopefully we'll develop a culture. Sure, well, to a point. When they start endangering their children, that's when we have a problem, right?
Very much it sounds that you are not. Very much it sounds like we are trying to force people into something that has over and over and over again has no base in nature and has been rejected.
If you want to do something for yourself is one thing, but when you try to force it on others, you have a problem.
You mean like diversity is your strength?
You don't force the diversity on
You mean you
others.
indoctrinated in schools? I heard what you said, by the way.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and indoctrinate them. That's a positive indoctrination. There's nothing
What
wrong with. There's
what
a lot of
more
things in schools
do you
that we
base that?
indoctrinate people
What is
with
your
that
right
doesn't mean
for
it's
doing that?
wrong. Sorry?
What moral rights do you have? Should I go to school and teach that? Should you have like white people are superior to everybody else? White supremacy shit. Should this stupidity that white people are superior to other people? Should that also, if I were to be in the power, should I have the right to do that as well?
No, no, you shouldn't.
Then your argument false.
Certain ideas don't have a place in school. If you're going to try and do that on your own and preach that on a platform,
Why don't you in school learn people that's something they should
kids
learn?
are highly
Of reading and
impressionable.
writing and
Kids
learning
are
the math
impressionable,
biology.
and that is when they're most vulnerable as well. Children have very delicate minds, are hungry and thirsty for more knowledge and understanding the systems and the way of the world. And if you try to indoctrinate them with your ethno-nationalism, we have a problem.
I mean that shit show you have on the campuses in America, you have it also where I live. Isn't that
don't think that I'm not a critic. Don't think that I'm not a critic of all of that shit. That is a problem that we on the left have been.
Yet you learn nothing from it. Then you still want to have diversity is your strength.
You should no. It's not just the diversity. It's how they push it and how they alienate others for being different, for being part of the majority. For example, where they alienate white people or white males, cis white males, or able males, those who aren't disabled, right? They go full identitarian, and not only do they preach the benefits of the diversity, but they demonize those who are in the dominance. Those who
have I done that to you so far?
No. You've just pushed your ideas of what's
supposed to be an identitarian. If you were to go to other identitarians, you would probably find something else. It's very much left-wing media I'm hearing here. There, I would say that you have a very closed mind of when it comes to us, and I would encourage you to actually read.
The fact that I'm having this conversation with you tells you that I have at least an open enough mind. At least I have. At least my values are strong enough. I'm secure enough in my values.
I am. As you wish to challenge mine, so will I will do with yours. And I think that is an honest conversation, and you can reject it or not. But what I mean is that if you go to a schoolyard, kids will play with each other. Kids have no concept of clicking up, so to speak. It doesn't exist. I mean, someone want to play football, you play football. You want to play whatever you want. You girls tend to stick together, of course, but all of that. Political kids have no notion of that, and nor should they. This is also a very much a principle when it comes to my camps. Kids should not be indoctrinated in that field. It is by free will. I have my free will. I have chosen to stand where I stand by free will alone. I have not been indoctrinated. I have chosen it. It has taken me years to come up to where I am. It's not like 5 minutes I watch some freaking YouTube video with Jerry Taylor's and then I declare my eternal servitude to Adolf Hitler. It doesn't work that way.
Well, that's actually very useful, because there are those that are trying to make that argument that YouTube has radicalized them through.
It's retarded. I'm going to tell you how it works. Most people, I don't know, I can't say that it works for everybody, but this is, if you listen to Jerry Taylor and you listen to all of them, you will find similar. And this is similar for all that I have met. You feel that something is wrong, then you go onto the internet or you read books or papers or whatever you want, the media you have. You know something is wrong, and you go there and you say feminism, for instance. Most people actually, a lot of people actually goes with conservatives, with Crowder, with Milo Yiannopoulos. I watched him a lot when I actually getting so-called red pilled. And I still watch him unto today. And I have no interest of murdering him or whatsoever. I think he's a very cool guy. And a lot of people actually think that also he's a cool guy. Oh, there you go. You didn't think that you would hear that, did you? And I'm not lying.
He's a right-wing troll. And a bit of an oxymoron by some standards.
Do what you will, but he is that. But now comes the kicker. Some people, he talks about the symptoms. Some people stay there, and many people do that. Some people ask, what is the disease, or what is the cause of feminism? And they go further than that. So it is a process. Some people stay at Milo Yiannopoulos, some people reject him and find their own way. It is by free will alone. It is not that I'm forced to be what I am. I chose by my own. It was a long, hard process, and I have chosen. I have not been indoctrinated. I choose to listen and learn, and I choose to see the things that I've seen today. Therefore, I am hopefully intelligent enough to give you something. You call me not thinking I'm an idiot, at least, but that is what it is. It is, and this is actually one of the tenets of nationalism, to read a lot of read the masters, read about communism, read about socialism, learn as much as you can about everything, improve your body, improve your mind, your spirit, all of it. It is self-preservation, but it is also self-building. It is a lifestyle. It is a choice you make. It is not politics. It is the choice you make.
Right. I mean, you could say that about literally any liberal can make that same argument.
Yes, there are no difference. There are no difference between me and a socialist or a communist or a liberal. The difference is how we think.
Well, in some ways, you think like a lot of the leftists.
You think of me as an extremist. I think of myself as a normal. I would think of you as an extremist.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to deny that in some ways I'm an extremist. I mean, I'm part of the LGBT community, so in some ways that's extreme. Do you know my background, by the way?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I'm transgender. Do you know that? Oh. Yeah, so that's pretty extreme because it means changing your body, right? But at the same time, it's an extremism that is, for me, based on my individuality, right? The freedom to live my own life the way I choose to, right? And it's not about alienating anyone else, not telling anyone else how they want to live their life, which is why, as a trans woman, you'll hear me criticize the trans community all the time about what pronouns people can use, right? Or where you might have seen my comments about Jessica Yaniv trying to force people to wax testicles.
This is despicable.
I'm going to be. It is, and I'm gonna call that out because that affects someone else's freedoms. Of course, I'm going to call that out. So I'm all about individual liberties. I love individual liberties, and I would never tell anyone how to do their own business. I think that's wrong. I think if someone chooses that they're going to work only on genetic women, they have that right. You do your thing, I'm going to do my thing, but don't you try to force your way onto me. Don't try to tell me how to live my life. But also don't tell me I can't live near you, right? So if someone who has a similar ideology to you says, sorry, you can't live in this neighborhood because we're anti-trans or we're anti-white or whatever, we'd have a real problem. And I would fight that. I would absolutely fight that because that's not my America. That is not my country. That was not the world I was brought up into, and that's not the world I'm going to allow it to stay in. You know, I will try and change it back. And this country is transforming in some ways for the worse. We had to put the brakes on it, and it's creating more minds that are sympathetic to your side, and that's a danger. I don't want to see that. I don't want people to think that maybe diversity isn't our strength, that maybe we should just be taking care of our own at the neglect of others. I think that is a very dangerous mindset.
You have your right to do so, but first of all, if you're going to argue diversity is your strength, then have something around. As it sounds now, and as you describe it, something. Not even you believe in that shit. I mean, it sounds like it's this weak argument built on assumptions of blah blah blah. I mean, there is nothing of it. There is no base in nature.
There is. For example, the LGBT community. so the gay and trans community have absolutely added to the experience of what it means to be a human and an American. So that we've shown that what the liberty of being gender non-conforming is like, right? Some of us are among the most creative individuals out there, right? And
Yeah,
then,
well, I'm agree on listen.
and it's okay. Well, then you also have in the Black community, they've got a lot of art to offer as well. If you ever saw the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, whatever it's called, the latest Spider-Man animation, you see a lot of Black culture in there, and it's actually really cool to see that kind of representation. I think that they did a very good job with that. That's America, though. That's part of what we have in America, and that's great.
I'm going to tell you something very shocking. Do you want to hear that? I support the way you live. It is very much naturally. I believe that you live in your life as you will, and you have my support. And many nationalists would say the same. You live your own way as you will. The question is, how diverse is the trans community? How many
So here's the thing.
men do you have around you?
The trans community is actually quite diverse. The problem is the representation is not. It's very homogenous. That's the problem. And part of this is that many in the trans community are scared of coming forth about who they are, what they believe, right?
Then I have another question for you. Do you think I want to murder you? Do you think people like me
there absolutely are people in the far right that do want to murder trans women, and some.
Yeah, I would say there is.
But
do you know the overall look when we were talking about homosexuality and so forth is?
I don't understand the question.
There has been discussion about homosexuality because it is at some point we are many are against pride and so forth. You heard of it, and there is a very and so forth. Do you know our views on that?
No, I don't know your.
Have you ever wondered what that could be?
Okay, just tell me, what are your views on it?
It's very simple. What you do at your own leisure, what you do in your home is yours. This goes for heterosexuals and homosexual alike. Who you fuck when you're home is not of my business. This is actually going abroad. But the problem starts is when you're promoting this lifestyle outside the house. And as we are looking now for Pride, has politicized it, has also altered language. You talked about cis men. This is retarded. This is coming straight from Pride users. I would say that.
Well, okay, so when I say cis, it helps to distinguish between those who are trans, right? So, I mean, as far as trans are concerned, a trans person, by and large, no, I'm actually of the school of thought that a trans woman is not the same as a biological woman. And so we do need to be suffixed like that, right, or prefixed like that. So we are prefixed women. So you have trans women. You also have intersex women, who aren't the same as someone who is cisgendered, right? We need that to help clarify who is what. Now, in general, you can just say man or woman. That's fine. This is language that we use for ourselves, and I don't expect others to either. For that matter, I'm not of the thought that it's important that everybody put pronouns in their bio. I think generally speaking, people know if someone is cisgender that they're cisgender. But generally, if I listening to you, talking to you, or if I just saw your picture, I would probably with a 95% accuracy, maybe higher, be able to guess that you're a man, right? So I don't think it's important to have your pronouns in your bio. Only when it's ambiguous, when there's a question. Maybe.
Why do you have pronouns for? Why would you have that? What is the point of it? Don't you have a name?
Right, but when you refer to that person, like you don't always have to use someone's name. You don't always say your name is doing something. You say he is doing something, right?
But heterosexual people don't go around greeting each other. Hey, I'm a man.
Right, that's my point. Right, even trans people, generally speaking, we don't do that either among ourselves because we generally know who's who, right? But when it's ambiguous, when it's hard to tell which way they're going, that's when you tend to use those pronouns. Although I think the whole pronoun thing, part of that is to enforce the idea that you can't take people at how they seem to be. And I have a little bit of a problem with that. I do. So I'm not going to agree with my community. I'm not going to be
I have a take on that, actually. I know. I would say exactly why you have the pronouns. It's to distinguish your group. So simple as that. As you are now a group, you have something else. You have something else.
Well,
so you name
yes,
them
the left-wing
cis-men.
collectivist identity.
You have labeled others, so you click up with yourself.
Sure. Does it make it right? No. That doesn't mean that we should be doing more of that. Just not. I do see that it's tribalist. Absolutely, I do see this tribalist behavior happening everywhere. It's not something that you want to condone or encourage in any way.
So, by the way, should you stop with pride festivals, for instance?
Do you know why pride exists in the first place? Do you know why?
Yes, I know. Celebrating homosexuality and so forth. Yes,
it's first and foremost a protest against those who would reject us, right? It's showing courage in the face of opposition, because when this first occurred, you couldn't be openly gay or trans or whatever. So they did it on purpose as a way to show, I'm not going to be afraid to be me anymore. It was an outward protest, and it's commendable why they do that. And it's something that when I see it in countries that are homophobic and transphobic, that's where it actually has the most meaning and is the most powerful. It's not about encouraging others to be like you. It's about showing others I have the freedom to be me, and I'm going to stand up to bullies that are going to tell me otherwise.
Then I have actually something you to contemplate upon. Actually, you are going to need me to be who you are, far more so and than you would actually think yourself. In England, Tim Pool there was a school in England. You may watch this on Tim Pool. Yes, they actually had that, and Muslims comes in and stops it. They had to shut it down.
There should be a separation of church and state.
Or other conservative population that isn't us would rise up. Can you understand that your rights, your pride festivals, all of them will just disappear?
Wait, why?
You can hate me as much as you want, but I stand for Western ideas.
Well, one of those Western ideals is that we're all created equal, right? So there is, if we really believe that we're all equal,
we are not created equal. There is no chance in hell, everybody. Some are smarter, some are stronger, some are taller, some are...
We all should be afforded the same basic rights and dignity to live our lives. So even though that, technically speaking, no one has the exact same capabilities, it doesn't matter. They should still be treated with the same respect, the same dignity.
And
for that, should still be allowed to participate and have the same opportunities as everyone else. And that includes where they live.
I have actually very good news for you. A very thought that is also recognized and well known is, have you ever heard of far-right people talk about class, as the left does?
No.
It doesn't exist. Right-wingers never talk about class. It talks about inclusion. When you are a part of our community, no matter if you dig a ditch or you do brain operations, you are a part of the collective that is who we are. Everybody has a place. And give me a second. Everybody has a place. They get money for what they do, enough so they can have a family and kids.
When the left talks about class, they're not...
It is a collective.
When the left talks about class, they're not demonizing people of lower classes either. They're talking about the inequality that is among the classes, and they would prefer...
Any words? Anybody. The left is a class. They only talk about classes that they can pity people against each other for economical, racial, for...
But the right does the same thing with the white working class. The right does exactly the same thing.
There
Now
is no right
you're far
class. It
right though.
doesn't exist within us. Class concept doesn't
The
exist.
right
Have
in
never existed.
general, conservatives in general, do use white working class as a wedge
Am
issue.
I
That's part of what
conservative?
got Trump elected in the first place.
But I'm not conservative. I share many of the conservative views. Yes,
Yeah,
I could probably sit and talk to Candace Owens and we can be friends as long as I don't talk about racial stuff. You would be surprised. Traditionalist, conservatism, all these things are pillars. Family as well. Anti-abortion. Abortion is murder. It's
right.
our big view. And we are pillars. We are conservative, yes, but we also understand what the conservatism lacks. We have taken it there. Conservatism is definitely a pillar here. So there he goes. But we are not conservatives. Don't think that I would conservative. Yes, I have conservative parts, but I'm not conservative.
Let me ask you a question, because if we're running out of time, I don't want to make this go longer than 2 hours. Stephen Molyneux, or however you pronounce his name, is he of the same mind or school of thought as your people?
Listen to him and decide yourself.
I get the feeling that he is, and whenever he talks about race, whenever even talking about birth rates and abortion and all that, I get the feeling that he's concerned about white people dying off and being dominated by minorities, as if that's necessarily a bad thing.
I will give you an honest answer then. This is my idea. I would say no, he's not part of us. He understands some of the viewpoints. Yes, he has a fundamental maybe understanding, but then probably lots of conservatives does as well. They're not talking about it. You can see the conservative talk about conservatives today. Republican Party understands that if the white man goes up, the Conservative Party goes along with it. Most people that votes Republicans are white. It's dominated by whites. There are black people and Hispanic, yes.
You don't think that that's a class issue? It has to do with those most privileged are going to want to keep what they have. It's like haves versus have-nots. The Republicans are all about keeping money and keeping power. The left, of course, is now playing the same game, but they've ramped it up and they've gone too far to the extreme.
But the left has the same. Democrats knows as well. Demographic will determine their future on top. The same in where I live as well. The Socialist Party understands as well.
I would say, suffice to say, identitarianism is dangerous. It is ultimately what is destroying this country. Anyway, this has been a very interesting discussion. If you want to talk about this at a later time, we could do that, but I don't want this video to go more than 2 hours, so I'm going to cut it right here, okay?
It was lovely to do, and yes, we can, if you have any questions that you survive the onslaught, then yes, we can talk about it later on.
I'm expecting the backlash for sure.
Yeah. It was a good talk, and have a good night.
All right. I guess you too. All right. Bye-bye.
See. Bye.